The war room smelled of coffee gone cold and tension sharp enough to cut. Colonel Marcus Ironwood stood at the head of the tactical table, his broad shoulders casting shadows across the topographical map spread before him. 6 months of probing attacks, 6 months of Black Ridge forces testing their borders like wolves circling wounded prey. And now, intelligence suggested something bigger was coming. His second-in-command, Major Carter Rhodes, pointed to 3 red markers along the eastern border. The 2 men had served together in Afghanistan, back when their enemies were human and their greatest weapon was trust. That trust hadn't faded, even as their world had grown stranger, more primal. "Enemy movement here, here, and here," Carter said, his voice carrying the efficient clip of a career military man. "Pattern suggests they're mapping our patrol rotations. Classic recon before a major push." Marcus studied the markers, his mind already running through defensive scenarios. "Reinforce eastern posts, double patrols on the ridgeline, and get me updated intelligence on Black Ridge's force composition. I want to know how many fighters Victor has and where he's positioning them." The pack's senior warriors nodded, making notes. These weren't weekend campers playing at soldier. Most had served in actual wars before the shift claimed them, before they learned that monsters were real and they were now counted among them. The Ironwood pack defended a strategic stretch of Montana borderland, a corridor between 3 territories that had seen blood spilled for generations. Sergeant Ruth Hawkins, the pack's combat medic and healer, stood near the door. At 58, she carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who had stitched more wounds than she cared to count. Her gray hair was pulled back in a military bun, and her eyes missed nothing. Marcus was about to dismiss the briefing when the air itself seemed to shudder. It started as a pressure behind his eyes, then spread through his chest like electricity finding ground. Every wolf in the room felt it. The ancient magic that governed their kind, the voice of something older than nations or wars, spoke in a language that bypassed words entirely. The tactical lamps flickered. The map on the table rippled as though touched by wind, though every window was closed. And then Marcus felt it, the undeniable pull toward someone standing at the room's edge. Dr. Ava Ashford. She had been taking notes, her role as the pack's civilian trauma surgeon, keeping her on the periphery of military planning. But now every eye turned toward her, and her pen stilled against the paper. The mate bond announcement came not with trumpets or moonlight, but with brutal certainty that settled into Marcus's bones. The moon goddess, that ancient force that chose pairs with logic beyond mortal understanding, had made her selection known. Marcus felt his wolf surge beneath his skin, pressing against the careful control he maintained. "Yes," the animal whispered. "Ours. Protect. Claim." He crushed that instinct with the discipline that had kept him alive through 2 tours and a dozen territorial disputes. The room fell silent. Pack politics were complicated enough without destiny throwing variables into the tactical equation. Marcus saw the expectation in their faces. Tradition dictated acceptance. The mate bond was sacred, a gift not to be refused. But tradition didn't account for war. Marcus straightened, his jaw set. "Dr. Ashford," he said, his voice carrying none of the warmth a fated mate might hope for. "You're a civilian. No combat experience beyond emergency triage. The mate bond will compromise tactical judgment on both sides. In the middle of border hostilities with Black Ridge, I can't afford that liability." The words landed like artillery shells. Ava's face remained composed, but he saw her fingers tighten around her pen. She had been turned only a year ago, rescued from a rogue attack that had left her bleeding out on a hiking trail. The shift had saved her life, but taken her career at a civilian hospital. She was still learning what it meant to be pack, still adapting to a world where instinct and duty collided. She met his gaze directly. "Understood, Colonel. I'll stay out of your way." The formal address was deliberate, professional. It drew a line between them clearer than any rejection speech could. Carter cleared his throat. "Marcus, the mate bond isn't something you just set aside. The elders say refusing it brings consequences." Marcus turned back to the map. "The consequences of distraction in combat are more immediate. We have a war to prepare for." Dismissed. The warriors filed out, some shaking their heads, others exchanging worried glances. They had seen what happened to wolves who rejected their fated mates. Nothing good came from denying what the moon goddess chose. Only Carter remained behind, and Ruth, who stood by the door with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. "Sir?" Carter said quietly once they were alone. "You sure about this?" Marcus's hands braced against the table edge. "I've led men through worse than curses. Right now, Victor Blackridge is planning something that could destroy this pack. I need a clear head and unified command, not divided loyalties." "The mate bond isn't divided loyalty." Marcus looked up sharply. "No? What happens when she's in danger and I have to choose between saving her and saving the pack? What happens when my wolf's instinct to protect her overrides tactical necessity?" Carter had no answer for that. Ruth stepped forward. "Marcus, your grandfather." "I know," Marcus cut her off. His voice carried an edge he rarely used with her. "I know what happened to him, which is exactly why I'm not making his mistakes." Ruth's expression softened with something like pity. "That's what he said, too." After they left, Marcus stood alone in the war room, staring at the map but seeing nothing. His wolf paced inside him, agitated in a way that felt dangerous. The animal didn't understand tactics or duty. It only knew that their mate had been found and then rejected, and the wrongness of it howled through every instinct Marcus possessed. He forced it down. Control was everything. Control was what separated disciplined soldiers from rabid animals. He had built his entire command on that principle. What he didn't know, what he couldn't yet admit, was that control was already slipping through his fingers like water through a clenched fist. That night, Ava volunteered for supply duty to the eastern border outposts. It was grunt work, typically assigned to junior pack members, but she needed air and distance from the sympathetic looks that followed her through the pack house. Ruth tried to talk her out of it. "Those border runs are getting dangerous. Blackridge has been aggressive." "All the more reason to have a trauma surgeon on site," Ava replied. "If someone gets hurt, you want me sitting safe at home or ready to work?" Ruth couldn't argue with that logic. The supply convoy consisted of 3 vehicles and 6 warriors, most of them young and eager to prove themselves. They treated Ava with careful respect, not quite sure how to interact with the alpha's rejected mate. She ignored the awkwardness and focused on inventory, medical supplies, ammunition, rations. The familiar routine of preparation steadied her. The mountain road curved through dense pine forest, the kind of terrain that could hide an army if they knew what they were doing. The lead driver kept checking his mirrors. Standard patrol paranoia, except tonight it felt justified. They were 2 miles from the outpost when the ambush hit. It wasn't a wild animal attack. This was professional, coordinated military precision. Blackridge Special Operations Team, 4 wolves in tactical formation, hitting the convoy at its most vulnerable point where the road narrowed between rock face and steep drop-off. The lead vehicle swerved as a massive gray wolf crashed through the driver's window. Tires screamed. Metal crumpled. The truck behind slammed brakes, and Ava was thrown forward against her seatbelt hard enough to bruise. Gunfire cracked through the night. The Ironwood warriors returned fire, but they were young, panicked, caught in a kill box that had been carefully prepared. This wasn't a random raid. Someone had planned this strike with cold calculation. "Get the doctor out," someone yelled. Ava's door was yanked open. Hands pulled her from the vehicle, dragging her toward the tree line. Behind them, the ambush continued with vicious efficiency. She heard bones breaking, heard the distinctive sound of shifters engaging in close combat. Then she heard something else, a sound that didn't belong to the chaos of battle, low, resonant, carrying a threat that made her attackers freeze mid-step. From the darkness between the trees, a wolf emerged. But this was no ordinary pack wolf. This animal was massive, easily outsizing even an alpha in shifted form. Its coat gleamed silver in the moonlight, each hair seeming to catch and hold the pale glow. And its eyes burned with an intelligence that was almost human. The Blackridge wolves faltered. One of them growled a warning, trying to reestablish dominance through sound. It was a mistake. The silver wolf moved with a speed that defied its size. But more than speed, it moved with purpose. This wasn't animal fury or berserker rage. This was controlled violence, the kind taught in special operations training. It hit the lead attacker with a precision strike to the shoulder, a disabling blow that took the enemy out of the fight without killing. Rules of engagement, minimum necessary force. Then it flowed into the next target, using the terrain for cover, angling its approach to divide the enemy's attention. Ava watched in shock as the silver wolf systematically dismantled the ambush. It targeted the squad leader first, disrupting command and control. It used flanking maneuvers. It positioned itself between her and the threat, creating a defensive perimeter. This wasn't instinct, this was tactics. The remaining Black Ridge wolves broke and ran. The silver wolf let them go. Another calculated decision. Don't pursue fleeing enemies when you have a civilian to protect. Ava had seen enough military operations to recognize doctrine when she witnessed it. The silver wolf turned to face her, and for a long moment they simply stared at each other. Its eyes were silver blue, the color of winter dawn. They held her gaze with an intensity that should have been frightening but somehow wasn't. She felt recognition there, and something deeper. Purpose. The wolf moved closer, each step careful, non-threatening. It lowered its massive head and huffed softly, a sound almost like a sigh. Then, before she could reach out, before she could speak, it turned and vanished back into the forest as silently as it had appeared. The Ironwood warriors regrouped, shaken but alive. They had seen the silver wolf too, and their expressions carried a mixture of awe and confusion. "What the hell was that?" one of them breathed. Ava touched her throat, feeling her pulse still racing. She had no answer. But as they secured the scene and called for backup, she noticed something near where the silver wolf had stood. Paw prints in the soft earth, massive, clear, unmistakable. And beside them, barely visible in the disturbed ground, the partial impression of a boot print. Military issue, size 12. The same boots Colonel Marcus Ironwood wore. Marcus woke in his quarters with no memory of how he got there. The last thing he clearly recalled was finishing a status report around 2200 hours. Now his watch read 03:15, and 5 hours had simply vanished from his mind. He sat up slowly, trying to piece together the gap. Sometimes exhaustion caused this. Combat fatigue, stress, the weight of command pressing down until the brain just shut off for a while. He had seen it in soldiers before, but this felt different. His tactical pants were torn at the knee, his hands were scraped, dirt under the fingernails, and when he stood, his right shoulder throbbed with the deep ache of impact trauma. He made his way to the bathroom, turned on the light, and studied his reflection. A bruise was forming along his collarbone. Scratches marked his forearms. His hair was damp, not with sweat, but as though he had been outside in the night air. The harder he tried to remember, the more the memories slipped away like smoke. There was something there, just out of reach, a sense of motion, the smell of pine and gunpowder, a feeling of overwhelming rightness that he couldn't explain. His wolf stirred inside him, satisfied in a way it had no right to be. The animal felt content, almost smug. That alone set off warning bells. His wolf had been agitated ever since the mate bond revelation. It shouldn't be calm now. A knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. Carter stood in the hallway, still in tactical gear. His expression was carefully neutral, the face of a good soldier delivering bad news to his commander. "Sir, we had an incident. Border Patrol was ambushed. Everyone's alive, but it was a professional hit. Black Ridge Special Ops." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "Casualties?" "Minor injuries. Dr. Ashford was with the convoy. She's fine." Something intervened. "Something?" Carter hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Witnesses report a large wolf, silver coat, engaged the attackers and drove them off, moved like special forces. By the time our reinforcements arrived, it was gone." Marcus's mouth went dry. He felt his wolf stir again, that same satisfied rumble. "Yes," the animal seemed to say, "protected her, kept her safe." "Did we identify the wolf?" Marcus asked, though he already dreaded the answer. "No, sir, but Dr. Ashford found tracks at the scene, paw prints and boot prints. Carter paused. "She asked to speak with you when you have time." Marcus nodded slowly. "Tell her I'll debrief her at 0800. And Carter, get me full tactical analysis of the ambush. I want to know how Blackridge knew that convoy's route and timing." "Yes, sir." Carter moved to leave, then stopped. "You okay? You look like you went 3 rounds." "Training accident," Marcus said. The lie came easily. Too easily. "Go get some rest." After Carter left, Marcus returned to the bathroom mirror. He stared at his reflection, at the marks and bruises he couldn't explain, and felt the first cold touch of fear. What if control wasn't enough? What if something inside him was already beyond his ability to command? The next 2 weeks established a pattern that Marcus couldn't break and couldn't explain. During the day, he functioned. He commanded. He made tactical decisions with the clarity that had earned him his rank. But there were gaps now, hours missing from his memory, time he couldn't account for. Carter covered for him, explaining away his absences as perimeter checks or meetings with border scouts. But Marcus knew the truth was darker than convenient excuse. At night, the dreams came. Not the usual war flashbacks or tactical rehearsals. These were different, visceral. He dreamed of running through forest on 4 legs, of scents so sharp they carried information like text on a page. He dreamed of watching Ava from the shadows, tracking her movements, memorizing her patrol patterns. He dreamed of feeling whole in a way his waking hours never achieved. And every morning, he woke with evidence. Mud on his feet, scratches from branches, the deep muscle fatigue of someone who had run miles in the dark. His wolf was slipping its leash, and Marcus was losing time to a part of himself he couldn't control. Ruth noticed first. She cornered him after a pack council meeting, her healer's eye catching what others missed. "You're having the episodes," she said quietly, "like your grandfather." Marcus wanted to deny it, but Ruth had known him since he was a child. Lying to her was pointless. "It's manageable," he said instead. Ruth's expression said she didn't believe him. "Your grandfather said the same thing. Right up until he couldn't command anymore. Right up until the pack council had to remove him for everyone's safety. That won't happen." "Marcus," she touched his arm gently, "the curse isn't something you can just push through with discipline. It's in your blood. Catherine made sure of that." The mention of his great-grandmother made his jaw tighten. He knew the stories. Catherine Ironwood, OSS operative, World War II hero, who had brought back Nazi occult research and used it to fragment her son's psyche. All in the name of creating a stronger alpha, a leader who wouldn't hesitate, a commander who couldn't be weakened by love. "She failed," Marcus said. "Dominic died alone and broken. And you're following the same path." Ruth's voice was soft but unyielding. "Rejecting your mate, losing time, your wolf taking control. Tell me how this ends differently." Marcus had no answer. The pack noticed too. Warriors exchanged glances when Marcus gave orders he didn't remember issuing. When he asked for updates on situations he had personally handled, the whispers started small but grew louder. "The Alpha is compromised. He's losing his grip. What happens if Black Ridge attacks and Marcus isn't himself?" Only Carter kept absolute faith, covering the gaps, maintaining the illusion of unified command. But even Carter's loyalty had limits. One night, after Marcus returned from another blackout with torn clothes and wild eyes, Carter sat him down. "Sir, we need to talk about what's happening." Marcus met his old friend's gaze. "I'm handling it." "You're handling Jack," Carter shot back, using the bluntness of battlefield brotherhood. "You disappear for hours. You come back looking like you fought a war. And yesterday, you gave tactical orders to 3rd Platoon, detailed defensive positions for a scenario we haven't even briefed yet. You don't remember any of it, do you?" The silence was answer enough. Carter leaned forward. "Ruth showed me something. Archives from when your grandfather commanded. Medical reports, behavioral assessments. Marcus, it's like reading your file. The blackouts, the fractured decision-making, the way his wolf started operating independently. I'm not Dominic." "No, you're worse. Because Dominic had 30 years before it got this bad. You've had 6 months. Whatever this curse is, it's stronger in you." Marcus wanted to argue, but the evidence was mounting. And the most damning evidence was the one thing no one was saying out loud. The Silver Wolf appeared every time Ava was in danger. Supply convoy ambush, and the Silver Wolf intervened. Ava assigned to a remote outpost, and the Silver Wolf was spotted on patrol nearby. 3 separate incidents, 3 appearances, and each time Marcus woke with no memory and physical evidence that he had been somewhere else. The pattern was undeniable. His wolf was protecting their mate, and his human mind was locked out of the process entirely. Ava kept her distance, but she watched. As a trauma surgeon, she was trained to observe, to notice patterns in physiology and behavior, and Marcus Ironwood was exhibiting classic signs of dissociative episodes. She documented everything in a private journal, not to expose him, but to understand. The Silver Wolf's appearances, Marcus's subsequent exhaustion, the way he moved during tactical briefings, sometimes with perfect confidence, sometimes as though remembering decisions someone else made. She was a scientist at heart, even in this world of ancient magic and primal bonds. There had to be an explanation, had to be logic underneath the supernatural. Ruth found her one evening in the Pack Medical Facility, studying old files by lamplight. "You're researching the Ironwood curse," Ruth said. It wasn't a question. Ava looked up. "Is it wrong to try to understand?" "No." Ruth settled into a chair across from her. "But you should know the full story before you dig too deep. Some truths are heavier than others. I can handle heavy. Ruth studied her for a moment, then seemed to come to a decision. Your mate is carrying a legacy of psychological warfare, not metaphorical, actual military research turned inward. She opened a locked drawer and pulled out files marked classified. Ava recognized the designations. These were PAC archives, historical records kept from general view. Catherine Ironwood, Ruth began, was recruited by the OSS in 1943. She worked intelligence operations in occupied Europe. Near the end of the war, her unit raided a facility outside Berlin. The Nazis were researching occult applications for warfare. Most of it was pseudoscience and desperation. But one project, the Fenris-Wolf Protocol, it was different. Ava leaned forward, her medical training making her skeptical but curious. What kind of research? Psychological fracturing. The idea was to split a soldier's psyche, separate his tactical mind from his emotional responses, create warriors who couldn't feel fear or hesitation or attachment. Super soldiers, in essence. The research was incomplete. The test subjects all went insane. And Catherine brought it home, Ava guessed. Ruth nodded. She watched her son Dominic fall in love during Vietnam, watched him hesitate in a firefight because he was thinking about his mate Isla waiting for him. Catherine believed that hesitation made him weak. So she used the Nazi research, modified it with pack magic, and cursed her own son. Ava felt sick. She split his psyche. Split his soul, Ruth corrected. The wolf retained all memories, all emotional bonds, all mate instincts. The human lost access to those things. Dominic rejected Isla because he genuinely didn't understand why everyone said she was his mate. He couldn't feel the bond. His wolf could, but his human mind was blocked. That's monstrous. Yes, and it gets worse. The curse passes through the male bloodline. Each generation, it gets stronger. Dominic struggled for decades. Marcus's father had symptoms, but died young in border conflicts. Marcus, she met Ava's eyes. Marcus is third generation. The fracture is 3 times as severe. Ava absorbed this, her mind racing through the medical implications. So when Marcus rejected me, it wasn't really a choice. His wolf knew, but his human mind couldn't access that knowledge. Exactly. And now his wolf is taking control to protect you, because that's what wolves do. They protect their mates. But Marcus the man has no memory of it. He's experiencing dissociative episodes. He thinks he's losing his mind. Can it be broken, the curse? Ruth pulled out another file. This one was handwritten, Dominic's own journal from his final years. Yes, theoretically. The wolf and the man have to integrate. Both sides of his psyche have to consciously choose the mate simultaneously. But that requires Marcus to remember what his wolf is doing, to accept memories he currently can't access. And we're running out of time. What do you mean? Ruth opened the journal to a marked page. Read this. Ava read Dominic's shaking handwriting. The entries detailed his deterioration. At first, just memory gaps, then full blackouts, then entire days lost. And finally, toward the end, something worse. I gave 2 sets of orders today. The council stared at me like I was mad. I remembered commanding defensive positions at the northern ridge. Carter said I sent those same men to patrol the southern border. Both memories feel real. I am splitting into 2 separate commanders. Ava looked up, horrified. He was giving conflicting orders. By the end, Dominic couldn't hold command. The Pack Council removed him. He spent his last years in a medical facility, his mind completely fractured. And now, Ruth said quietly, Marcus is showing the same symptoms. He gives orders he doesn't remember, makes tactical decisions that surprise him later. If we don't break this curse soon, he'll lose command completely. And Blackridge knows, Ava said, suddenly understanding. That's why they're escalating now. They're waiting for Marcus to fracture. Ruth nodded grimly. Victor Blackridge's grandfather served with Dominic. He watched the curse destroy an alpha firsthand. Victor is running a psychological operation. Push Marcus until he breaks, then take the territory while Ironwood Pack is in chaos. So the ambushes, the probing attacks, all of it is designed to stress Marcus to the breaking point and separate him from his mate. Because deep down, Victor knows that the mate bond is the only thing that might save Marcus. If he can prevent that integration, Marcus will fall just like Dominic did. Ava sat back, her mind working through the tactical implications. We need to help Marcus access his wolf's memories, break down the barrier between the 2 parts of his psyche. Ruth smiled slightly. Now you sound like a strategist, but be warned, trying to tell Marcus any of this directly will backfire. His human mind will reject it as manipulation or delusion. He has to discover the truth himself. Then I need to create conditions where that discovery becomes unavoidable, Ava said. She was already forming a plan. Risky, potentially dangerous, but then again, everything about this situation was dangerous. If she did nothing, Marcus would deteriorate until he couldn't lead. The pack would fall to Blackridge, and the man her soul recognized as mate would end up broken and alone like his grandfather. That was unacceptable. Ava was a trauma surgeon. She was trained to make split-second decisions in impossible situations, trained to take calculated risks when all options were bad. It was time to operate. The intelligence came through at 0400, and it changed everything. Marcus stood in the war room, staring at the intercepted communications Carter had just decoded. Blackridge wasn't just planning raids anymore. This was preparation for a major offensive. Multiple fronts, coordinated strikes, designed to overwhelm Ironwood defenses and take territory. Timeline? Marcus asked. Best estimate, 2 weeks. Maybe less. Carter pointed to the troop movement indicators. Victor is consolidating forces here and here. He's bringing in allies from 2 other packs. This isn't a border skirmish anymore, sir. This is war. Marcus studied the map, his tactical mind analyzing vectors and vulnerabilities. They would hit during the full moon. Maximum chaos when every wolf would be dealing with heightened instincts. Smart. We need to fortify every position, he said. Increase patrols. Get intelligence on Victor's allied forces. I want to know exactly what we're facing. Already in motion, Carter confirmed. But sir, there's something else. The intelligence intercept included communications about you specifically. He pulled up a translated transcript. Marcus read Victor's words with cold fury. Ironwood is compromised. The curse is accelerating. All reports confirm he's experiencing episodes identical to his grandfather. We push him until he fractures. A divided alpha cannot hold command. So this whole escalation is about breaking me, Marcus said quietly. Psychological warfare. Victor remembers Dominic's fall. He's recreating the same conditions. Marcus's hands clenched on the table edge. It won't work. Carter looked at him steadily. Sir, with respect, it's already working. You're losing time, giving orders you don't remember. The pack is starting to notice. If Victor attacks during one of your episodes, we're finished. The brutal honesty hit like a gut punch because it was true. Marcus had spent his entire career training to be the perfect commander. Decisive, clear-headed, uncompromising, and now his own mind was betraying him. Then we need to force integration before the offensive, Marcus said. If my wolf and I are going to win this war, we need to stop fighting each other. How do you propose we do that? Marcus looked at the map, at the defensive positions, at the calculated risk Victor was taking. Sometimes the only way through a problem was straight at it. Dr. Ashford has been investigating the curse, he said. Ruth mentioned she has theories. It's time I stop avoiding the one person who might actually help me understand what's happening. Carter raised an eyebrow. You're going to talk to your rejected mate about the fact that your wolf has been protecting her without your knowledge? When you put it that way, it sounds insane. Sir, with respect, this whole situation is insane. But if there's even a chance she can help you integrate before the battle, we have to take it. Marcus nodded slowly. Set up a meeting. Private. Just me and Dr. Ashford. And Carter, if this goes badly, if I lose control completely, you need to be ready to take command. It won't come to that. But if it does, Marcus insisted, the pack comes first, always. Carter met his gaze, the bond of brotherhood and war forged between them. Yes, sir, always. After Carter left, Marcus stood alone in the war room. Outside, the sun was rising over Montana mountains, painting the peaks in gold and shadow. Somewhere in those forests, his wolf ran with memories Marcus couldn't access. Somewhere in the pack house, a woman he had rejected was trying to save him anyway. He had built his entire command on control, on the certainty that discipline and training could overcome any obstacle. But this enemy wasn't external. It was inside him, woven into his very DNA by an ancestor who thought she was creating strength. Catherine Ironwood had tried to separate warrior from human. She had failed catastrophically. And now Marcus had to succeed where she failed. He had to become whole, integrate the fracture, embrace what she had tried to destroy. Or he would fall, just like his grandfather. And this time, he would take his entire pack down with him. The war was coming. The enemy was both outside and within, and Marcus Ironwood was about to discover that the hardest battle he would ever fight was the one between the two halves of his own soul. In her quarters, Ava closed the journal she had been studying and looked out at the same sunrise. She felt the mate bond like a constant pull, even rejected, even denied. It whispered that Marcus was in pain, that he was fighting himself, that time was running short. She was a surgeon. She knew how to operate when the stakes were life and death. She knew how to make the cut that saved even when it caused pain. Marcus didn't know it yet, but he had just made the choice that would change everything. He had decided to stop running from the truth, and Ava would make sure that when he finally faced it, when wolf and man finally met in the space between denial and acceptance, she would be there. Not as a rejected mate seeking vindication, but as a partner ready to fight beside him, because that was what soldiers did. They stood together in the darkness and held the line. The battle was coming, and this time, they would face it whole. The meeting room Ruth had chosen was deliberately neutral. Not Marcus's command office with its maps and authority. Not the medical facility where Ava held domain. Instead, a quiet space in the older part of the pack house, where thick log walls muffled sound and the morning light filtered through windows that had watched generations of Ironwoods make decisions that shaped their bloodline. Marcus arrived first, punctual as always. He wore field pants and a tactical shirt, the uniform of a soldier even in peacetime. His jaw carried the tension of a man preparing for difficult terrain. Ava entered moments later. She carried a leather portfolio under one arm, her movements precise and economical, a surgeon's efficiency. She met his gaze directly, no hesitation, no wounded pride. Whatever she felt about the rejection, she had locked it away in favor of purpose. Ruth stood by the door, present but silent, a witness and a safety measure both. "Dr. Ashford," Marcus began, his voice carrying the formal distance he had maintained since the mate bond revelation. "Major Rhodes indicated you've been researching the Ironwood family history. I need to understand what I'm dealing with." Ava set the portfolio on the table between them. "Before I share what I've found, I need your word that you'll hear me out completely. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible. But I'm a scientist, Colonel. I don't deal in theories I can't support with evidence." Marcus nodded once, sharp and military. "You have my word." Ava opened the portfolio and pulled out documents that made Marcus's breath catch. His grandfather's medical files, behavioral assessments from pack doctors spanning decades, and photographs, old ones, showing Dominic Ironwood in various stages of decline. Ruth stepped forward, spreading additional files across the table. Catherine Ironwood used Nazi psychological warfare research to curse her own son. She believed attachment made him weak, so she split his psyche using modified occult protocols. Wolf consciousness separated from human. Dominic rejected his mate Isla because he genuinely couldn't feel the bond. His human mind was locked out while his wolf knew the truth. Marcus stared at the evidence. "The curse passes down through male bloodline, getting stronger each generation. Your third generation. The fracture is 3 times as severe." The room fell silent as Marcus absorbed this. Everything he had experienced, the blackouts, the contradictory orders, the sense of being divided, it all had a source. Not PTSD, not mental illness, but inherited trauma from an ancestor who thought she was creating strength. "Can it be broken?" he asked quietly. Ruth pulled out Dominic's final journal. "Yes, but it requires integration. Wolf and man must consciously merge, share memories, choose the mate simultaneously. Your grandfather never achieved it because he refused help, refused to trust what his wolf knew." "And I have how much time?" Ava's voice was steady but grim. "Based on Dominic's progression adjusted for your generation's severity, 1 week, maybe less. After that, the dissociative episodes will be too severe. The Pack Council will have no choice but to remove you from command. 1 week until I fracture completely," Marcus said. 1 week until Victor launches his offensive." He looked up at Ava. "And you think I can force integration in that time?" "I think you have to try, because the alternative is unacceptable." Something in her voice made Marcus pause. The mate bond, even rejected, still pulled between them. She was looking at him not just as a doctor analyzing a patient, but as someone who felt his pain as though it were her own. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. "I rejected you, in front of the entire pack. You owe me nothing." Ava's expression didn't waver. "Because you rejected me with your human mind, the part Catherine's curse controls. But your wolf has been protecting me since the moment the bond was revealed. He knows what your conscious mind can't accept. And I'm not going to let a 70-year-old curse destroy the man I'm fated to stand beside. The raw honesty hit Marcus harder than any tactical briefing. No games, no manipulation, just truth delivered with surgical precision. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "Access," Ava said. "I need to observe you, document the patterns, understand when your wolf takes control and why. We need to map the territory between your two consciousnesses so we can find the bridge points." "You want to study me like a case file?" "I want to save you like a patient," Ava corrected. "There's a difference." Marcus looked to Carter, who had slipped quietly into the room and stood by the door. His beta's face showed nothing but loyalty and trust. "All right," Marcus said. "We do this. But we do it on a tactical timeline. I need to be functional before Victor's offensive. Whatever integration process you design, it has to work fast." "Then we start today," Ava said. "And I need you to stop avoiding me. Your wolf responds to proximity to me. That's our biggest advantage. The more time we spend together, the more pressure we put on the barrier between your two sides. You want me to deliberately trigger the episodes. I want you to create conditions where integration becomes necessary for survival. Your wolf and your human mind are both tacticians, Colonel. They just need a reason to coordinate instead of compete." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we train, like any other military skill. We drill until the integration becomes automatic." "Exactly." Ava closed the portfolio. "But I need your permission for something else. When you shift, when your wolf takes control, I need to be there. I need to interact with that side of you, build trust, establish communication patterns. Your wolf already protects me. We use that." "That's dangerous." "Everything about this is dangerous. But I'm not a civilian who needs protecting, Colonel. I'm a trauma surgeon who has worked war zones. I can handle myself around your wolf." Marcus wanted to argue, but the logic was sound. Military operations required calculated risk. If proximity to Ava helped break down the barrier, then tactical doctrine demanded they pursue that advantage. "Fine," he said, "but we do this with Carter present, and we establish safety protocols. If my wolf shows any sign of losing control, I want the team authorized to intervene with whatever force is necessary." "Agreed," Ava said. Ruth stepped forward, placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Your grandfather never got this far. He never accepted help, never tried to understand the curse. You're already ahead of him." Marcus looked at the documents spread across the table, evidence of generational trauma, of a brilliant soldier's attempt to create strength that became a legacy of broken minds. "Where do we start?" he asked. Ava smiled slightly, the first real warmth she had shown since the rejection. "With the hardest part, trusting yourself." The training began that afternoon in a clearing deep in pack territory. Far enough from the compound that they would have privacy, close enough that reinforcements could arrive if needed. Carter established a perimeter with 3 senior warriors positioned at strategic points, armed, alert, under orders to intervene only if Marcus's wolf showed genuine threat to Ava. It felt excessive and necessary in equal measure. Marcus stood in the center of the clearing, Ava 20 feet away. The distance felt simultaneously too far and too close. His wolf stirred beneath his skin, aware of her presence, eager in a way that made him uncomfortable. The plan was simple in theory, brutal in execution. Marcus would shift deliberately, but fight to maintain consciousness. Ava would talk to him, provide focal points, anchor his human awareness while his body transformed. They would attempt to bridge the gap, one controlled shift at a time. "Ready?" Ava asked. Marcus nodded. He had shifted thousands of times. Never with an audience like this. Never with the deliberate intention of staying aware through the process. He closed his eyes, reached for the change. Usually it was automatic, instinct and muscle memory. This time he tried to observe every stage, tried to document the moment when his consciousness usually slipped away. The shift began. Bones rearranged with familiar pain, muscles stretched and reformed, fur erupted across skin. His senses sharpened, expanded, brought the world into brutal focus, and his mind started to drift, to sink into that comfortable darkness where the wolf took over and Marcus stopped being. "No," he thought, stay present, stay aware." "Marcus," Ava's voice cut through the fog, "I need you to hear me. You're still you. The form is changing, but your mind doesn't have to leave." He tried to hold on, tried to keep his human thoughts accessible, even as his body became something else. For a moment, he thought he had it. He could feel both consciousnesses, human and wolf, existing in the same space. Then the barrier slammed down like a door closing. Darkness, absence, the familiar void. When awareness returned, Marcus was human again, on his hands and knees in the grass, breathing hard. Sweat dripped down his face. His entire body ached as though he had run a marathon. "How long?" he gasped. 15 minutes, Carter called from the perimeter. "You shifted, stood there for about 10 minutes, then shifted back. Didn't move, didn't respond to any verbal cues." Marcus looked up at Ava, who was studying him with intense focus. "Did I? Was my wolf aware?" She crouched down to his level, maintaining careful distance. "Your eyes tracked me. When I moved right, you watched. When I spoke, your ears focused. But you weren't present. Your wolf was in full control." "So I failed." "You tried," Ava corrected. "That's further than your grandfather got. We'll try again tomorrow, and the day after, until you find the thread that keeps you conscious." Over the next 3 days, they trained with military discipline. Morning sessions in the clearing, afternoon briefings where Marcus tried to recall any fragment of his wolf's awareness, evening debriefs with Carter and Ruth mapping his progress in tactical terms. Day 1 brought 30 seconds of retained consciousness after shifting. Marcus remembered the sensation of 4 legs, the overwhelming scent information, and Ava's voice like an anchor in chaos. Day 2 achieved 2 minutes, long enough to make a deliberate choice. Ava had dropped a medical kit, and his wolf consciousness debated whether to approach or maintain distance. Marcus felt himself making that decision, felt the wolf's protective instincts and his own tactical assessment merging for just a moment. Day 3 brought breakthrough. Marcus managed 5 minutes of dual awareness, his human strategic thinking overlaying his wolf's sensory experience. It was exhausting, like holding 2 conversations simultaneously, but it was progress. On the morning of Day 4, Victor Blackridge sent a message that changed everything. The courier arrived during breakfast. A young wolf from a neutral pack, carrying a sealed letter and white flag of temporary truce. Carter brought it to Marcus in the command center. The letter was brief and brutal. "Colonel Ironwood, I propose a meeting. Neutral ground tomorrow night. You and I, with seconds only. We discuss terms before this escalates to full conflict. If you refuse, I will consider it evidence that you are no longer capable of command, and will proceed accordingly. Respectfully, General Victor Blackridge." "It's a trap," Carter said immediately. "Probably," Marcus agreed. "But he knows I can't refuse. If I don't meet him, it confirms I'm unstable. The Pack Council will use it as evidence to remove me." Ruth studied the letter. "Tomorrow night. That's not much time to achieve full integration." "It might be all the time we have," Marcus said. "If Victor is moving his timeline up, it means his intelligence says I'm close to breaking. This meeting is his last chance to assess my state firsthand before launching his offensive." Ava entered the command center, saw the assembled group, and read the situation immediately. "What happened?" Marcus handed her the letter. She read it twice, her expression darkening. "He wants to see if you'll fracture under direct confrontation," she said. "Put you in a high-stress situation and watch for signs of dissociation." "Then I need to be fully integrated before that meeting," Marcus said. "No more gradual progress. We accelerate." Ruth shook her head. "Marcus, forcing it could make things worse. And not forcing it guarantees failure." Marcus's voice carried command authority that brooked no argument. "We have 1 day. Whatever protocol you have, whatever techniques might work, we implement them all." Carter met his eyes. "Sir, that's a risk." "Everything is a risk now. The question is whether I'm willing to take it." Ava set down the letter. "There is one option we haven't tried. It's extreme, and there's no guarantee it will work. Tell me." Ava looked to Ruth, who nodded reluctantly. "We force a crisis situation, something that requires both your wolf and your human mind to coordinate in real time. No more controlled training sessions. We create battlefield conditions where integration becomes necessary for survival." "You want to put me in actual danger." "I want to put us both in danger," Ava corrected. "Your wolf's strongest instinct is protecting his mate. Your human mind's strongest instinct is tactical command. If we create a situation where both are needed simultaneously, where neither can succeed alone, we might force the integration through sheer necessity." Marcus understood immediately. Tactical immersion training, the military technique for breaking soldiers of hesitation, put them in scenarios so intense that instinct and training had to merge or they failed. "What kind of scenario?" Carter answered, his tactical mind already working. "Blackridge has been running patrols along our eastern border, aggressive posturing, testing response times. We send Dr. Ashford on a medical run to the border outpost. You shadow the operation in wolf form. When Black Ridge inevitably tests the convoy, you'll have to coordinate human strategic thinking with wolf combat capability, all in real time. That puts Ava directly in danger, Marcus said. I know, Ava replied. I'm volunteering anyway. Absolutely not. Colonel, she stepped forward, her voice firm. We don't have time for safe options. If you go into that meeting with Victor still fractured, he will see it. He will exploit it, and everything you fought for will collapse. This is our best chance. Marcus wanted to refuse. Every protective instinct, both human and wolf, screamed against deliberately endangering his mate. But the tactical part of his mind, the part that had kept him alive through 2 wars and countless operations, knew she was right. Controlled danger was better than chaotic breakdown. Fine, he said, but we do this with maximum support. I want a full tactical team in position. Snipers on the ridge, quick reaction force ready to deploy. This is a training operation with live fire potential, and I want everyone understanding that. Agreed, Carter said. I'll coordinate the support elements. The day passed in preparation. Carter briefed the support teams, positioning snipers and reaction forces with the precision of actual combat operations. Ruth prepared medical supplies for multiple contingencies. Ava reviewed tactical maps, memorizing routes and fallback positions, and Marcus tried to quiet the war raging inside him. His human mind recognized this as sound tactics. His wolf, increasingly present even during waking hours, paced with barely contained need to protect. That evening, Ruth pulled Marcus aside and showed him Dominic's final journal entry. If I could go back, I would tell my younger self that Catherine was wrong. Strength isn't the absence of attachment. Strength is fighting for something worth dying for. I rejected Isla because I couldn't feel the bond. My wolf knew, and he tried to show me every night for 40 years. I was too proud to listen. Now I am alone, broken, and I finally understand. The wolf and the man were never meant to be separate. We were always supposed to be whole. Marcus read the words twice, his grandfather's final wisdom, bought with decades of suffering. I'm trying, Marcus said quietly. Ruth squeezed his shoulder. Tomorrow you'll do more than try. You'll succeed, because you have something Dominic never had. You have a mate who refuses to give up on you. The full moon rose over Montana mountains like a silver coin, bright enough to cast shadows through the forest. The night was clear, cold, perfect visibility for the operation. Ava sat in the passenger seat of the lead vehicle, medical supplies secured in the back. 2 junior warriors drove and provided security. They knew this was training, knew their alpha was watching from somewhere in the darkness. They didn't know this was actually an attempt to repair 70 years of genetic damage. Marcus had shifted an hour before sunset, fighting to maintain awareness through the transformation. This time, he managed to hold on longer, minutes instead of seconds. He remembered the plan, remembered why he was doing this, remembered Ava's voice coaching him through the change. Then the barrier came down, and he was adrift in darkness. But this time, the darkness wasn't complete. He could feel his wolf's consciousness, vast and primal and certain, could feel the animal's awareness of Ava's location, tracking her scent like a compass pointing true north. And beneath that animal certainty, Marcus's human thoughts flickered like candle flame in wind. Stay, he told himself, don't let go. Both of us are needed. The convoy moved along the mountain road, headlights cutting through shadows. Carter's voice crackled over the radio, reporting all clear from the support positions. Everything proceeding according to plan. 2 miles from the border outpost, the plan fell apart. Marcus's wolf, running parallel to the convoy through the forest, caught a scent that didn't belong. Multiple wolves, Black Ridge signature, moving in coordinated pattern. Not a patrol, a hunting party. And they were targeting the convoy. Marcus felt his wolf's instant assessment. Ambush, real one, not training scenario. 8 hostiles, combat formation, positioned for maximum impact. The tactical part of his mind, the human part, tried to surface. Need to warn Carter, need to coordinate response. But the wolf was already moving, instinct driving him toward the threat. No, Marcus thought. Wait, we need both. Can't just attack, need strategy. For the first time, the wolf hesitated. Not from fear or uncertainty, but from something else. Recognition. The human consciousness wasn't an enemy or interference. It was the other half of the same command structure. The convoy rounded a curve, entering the kill zone. The Black Ridge wolves emerged from cover, faster and more aggressive than intelligence had predicted. This wasn't a testing probe. This was an assassination attempt. They went straight for Ava's vehicle. Marcus's wolf exploded from the tree line, but this time, something was different. As his body moved, his human mind stayed present, watching, analyzing, and more than that, contributing. The wolf wanted to hit the closest threat, protect mate, eliminate danger. But the human mind saw the tactical picture. The closest wolf was a decoy. The real threat was the one flanking left, moving toward Ava's door with professional precision. Target left, Marcus thought, and incredibly, his wolf adjusted. Changed approach angle mid-stride, perfect coordination between instinct and strategy. The silver wolf hit the flanking attacker with devastating force, disabled him with a strike that was both brutal and controlled. Rules of engagement, minimum necessary force, exactly as military doctrine prescribed. The other Black Ridge wolves hesitated, recognizing the massive silver form. Some intelligence must have briefed them about the ghost operative, but they had orders, and they pressed the attack. What happened next would be analyzed by pack tacticians for years to come. The silver wolf fought with a precision that defied animal nature. It used terrain for cover, advancing and retreating with perfect timing. It targeted leaders first, disrupting command and control, and most remarkably, it coordinated with the support teams. Carter's snipers had positions on the ridge, but in the chaos of close combat, they couldn't safely fire without risking friendly casualties. The silver wolf, somehow understanding this, deliberately maneuvered targets into clear firing lanes, herding them with tactical precision that required understanding complex battlefield geometry. The support team, watching through scopes, saw something impossible. The wolf was running military operations. 3 minutes. That's how long the ambush lasted. When it ended, 5 Black Ridge wolves were disabled but alive. 2 had retreated, and 1 lay dead, killed only after presenting lethal threat that couldn't be contained. The silver wolf stood between the convoy and the forest, sides heaving, blood on its muzzle, and its eyes, those silver blue eyes, held awareness that was both animal and something more. Ava stepped out of the vehicle slowly, hands visible, posture non-threatening. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I know you're in there, both of you." The wolf's ears focused on her voice, its head tilted in that distinctive gesture that was pure Marcus Ironwood. "You did it," she continued. "You coordinated, wolf and man working together. That's integration. That's what we've been trying to achieve." The wolf took a step toward her, then stopped, torn between instinct to close the distance and training to maintain professional space. Ava held out her hand, not demanding, just offering. "It's okay. You protected me. You protected everyone, and you did it with both sides of yourself." The silver wolf moved closer, pressed its massive head against her palm, and in that moment of contact, something fundamental shifted. Marcus felt it like a wall crumbling. The barrier between his two consciousnesses didn't disappear, but it cracked. Light poured through gaps that had been solid for generations. He felt his wolf's memories flooding in, every night spent guarding Ava, every tactical assessment made with animal senses and predator logic, every moment of certainty that she was mate, partner, the one worth protecting above all others. And his wolf felt Marcus's memories, too. Military service, brotherhood forged in combat, the weight of command, the fear of failing those who depended on him. The human reasons behind every decision, every sacrifice. They weren't one consciousness yet, but they were no longer completely separate. They were two commanders who had finally begun to trust each other. The shift back to human form happened gradually. Marcus fought to stay aware through every stage. This time, when bone and muscle reformed, when fur receded and human skin emerged, his mind didn't black out. He knelt in the grass, breathing hard, Ava's hand still touching his shoulder. And he remembered. All of it. The ambush, the coordination with support teams, the feeling of his wolf's instincts merging with his tactical training. "Did we just do that?" he asked, his voice rough. "You did," Carter said, approaching with weapons lowered. "Sir, that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. You ran a perfect combat operation in wolf form." "I remember," Marcus said, wonder in his voice. "I remember doing it. The tactics, the coordination. I was there. Both of me were there." Ruth arrived with medical supplies, checked him over with efficient professionalism. "Integration has begun," she said. Not complete, but the barrier is fracturing. You're sharing consciousness across forms. Marcus looked up at Ava. It worked. Your crazy, dangerous plan worked. She smiled, tired but triumphant. Told you, trauma surgeon. I know how to operate. The debrief lasted hours. Carter documented everything, building a tactical profile of what integrated command looked like. Ruth took medical readings, tracking neurological patterns. And Ava sat beside Marcus, her hand resting on his arm, a steady anchor as his mind adjusted to memories and awareness it had been denied for months. The Blackridge survivors were secured and questioned. Their story confirmed Victor's escalation. This hadn't been a training probe. This was a genuine assassination attempt, moved up ahead of schedule, which meant Victor was more desperate than intelligence suggested. He knew Marcus was close to integration. This attack was meant to either kill Ava, severing the mate bond permanently, or push Marcus into full fracture through trauma. It had done neither. Instead, it had accomplished what days of controlled training couldn't. It had forced Wolf and Man to fight as one unit or fail completely. We need to continue reinforcing the integration, Ruth said. You've broken through the barrier, but it's not stable yet. You need more time sharing consciousness, building the neural pathways that let both sides communicate. Time we don't have, Marcus said. The meeting with Victor is tomorrow night. Then we practice through the rest of tonight and all day tomorrow, Ava said. No sleep, no rest. We drill the integration until it becomes automatic. Marcus wanted to argue that she needed rest after the ambush stress, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She was a soldier now, committed to the mission, and the mission was saving him. All right, he said. We push through. Carter, I want you monitoring. If I start to fracture instead of integrate, you pull the plug. Yes, sir. They worked through the remaining night and the following day. Marcus shifted and returned, each cycle fighting to maintain consciousness. Ava talked him through every transformation, her voice the thread that kept both sides of him connected. By midday, Marcus could retain full awareness for 15 minutes in wolf form. By evening, 30 minutes. By the time the sun set and the meeting hour approached, he could shift, coordinate with his team, and shift back without losing a single memory. The integration wasn't complete. He could feel the barrier still there, thinner but present. Full merging would take more time, but he had achieved something his grandfather never managed. He had proven that Wolf and Man could work together instead of fighting for dominance. And that would have to be enough, because tonight he would face Victor Blackridge. And Victor would be looking for any sign of fracture, any weakness to exploit. Marcus Ironwood had spent his entire career preparing for impossible missions. But this one was different. This time, the enemy he had to defeat was the legacy of his own bloodline, and the weapon he had to master was trust in the parts of himself Catherine Ironwood had tried to destroy. The final test was coming, and it would determine not just his fate, but the future of every wolf who carried the Ironwood curse in their blood. In his office, staring at maps that showed Blackridge positions and potential routes for the meeting, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in months. Not certainty, that was still distant, but possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, he could win this war. Both wars. The external one against Victor's forces, and the internal one against his family's curse. Ava found him there as the final preparations were made. "Ready for tonight?" she asked. "No," he admitted, "but I'm more ready than I was yesterday." And that's progress. She moved to stand beside him, close enough that he could feel her warmth. The mate bond hummed between them, no longer rejected but not yet fully accepted, healing like everything else. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "your wolf knew what your human mind couldn't admit. You're stronger with connection, not weaker. Catherine was wrong about everything." Marcus looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since the mate bond revelation. Not as a liability or complication, but as a partner who had fought beside him through the hardest battle of his life. "I'm sorry," he said, "for the rejection, for making you prove your worth when you never should have had to." Ava shook her head. "You rejected me because your mind was cursed. Now you're fighting to break that curse. That's all the apology I need. When this is over, when Victor is dealt with and the pack is safe, I want to do this right. The mate bond, the claiming, all of it, the way it should have been from the beginning." She smiled. "One war at a time, Colonel. First we survive tonight." "First we survive tonight," he agreed. Outside, the last light faded from the sky. The moon would rise soon, bright enough to illuminate the neutral ground where two alphas would meet. Somewhere in the darkness, Victor Blackridge was making his own preparations, planning his own assessment. But Marcus had something Victor didn't understand. He had stopped fighting himself, and an alpha who commanded both his natures was more dangerous than any enemy could anticipate. The meeting was set, the pieces were in motion, and Marcus Ironwood, fractured but healing, cursed but unbroken, was ready to face whatever came next. Not alone, never alone again. The neutral ground Victor had chosen carried its own history, a clearing at the convergence of 3 territorial boundaries, where pack leaders had met for generations to resolve disputes before they escalated to bloodshed. Ancient stones marked the perimeter, weathered by decades of Montana winters, silent witnesses to negotiations that had shaped the balance of power in these mountains. Marcus arrived with Carter at his side, both men armed but carrying weapons openly, a sign of transparency required by traditional protocols. The sun was setting, casting long shadows through the pines. Victor would appreciate the symbolism. Twilight, the space between day and night, civilization and wilderness. The hour when wolves were strongest. Victor Blackridge stood in the clearing's center, his second Petrov flanking him. The Blackridge Alpha was a decade older than Marcus, his face weathered by years of command, his posture carrying the confidence of someone who believed he held all the advantages. He wore field combat gear, practical rather than ceremonial. A soldier, like Marcus, who understood that real power came from capability, not display. "Colonel Ironwood," Victor said, his voice carrying the graveled tone of someone who had shouted orders over artillery fire. "Thank you for coming." "General Blackridge," Marcus replied, matching the formality. "Your message suggested urgency." Victor gestured to the stones. "Shall we observe tradition? Seconds remain at the perimeter while principals speak?" Marcus nodded. Carter moved to stand near one of the boundary markers, hand resting casually near his sidearm. Petrov took position opposite. The 2 commanders were left alone in the center, close enough to speak without shouting, far enough to react if violence erupted. "You wanted to assess my stability," Marcus said, cutting directly to the purpose. "See if the Ironwood curse has fractured me yet." Victor's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Respect for directness, perhaps. I wanted to see if you're still capable of rational command. Your grandfather wasn't by the end." Dominic gave contradictory orders, sent patrols into ambushes he himself had planned to avoid. The Pack Council had to remove him for everyone's safety. "I'm not Dominic." "No," Victor agreed. "You're 3rd generation. The fracture is stronger in you. My intelligence says you've been experiencing dissociative episodes for months. Memory gaps, behavioral inconsistencies. Your people are loyal, Colonel, but loyalty doesn't change biology." Marcus held Victor's gaze. "You've based your entire strategic timeline on that assumption. Push me until I break, then roll through Ironwood territory while we're leaderless. It's sound tactics." Victor's voice carried no apology. "I have a responsibility to my pack. Ironwood holds strategic territory. If your command becomes compromised, people will die. Better to act decisively than wait for disaster." "And the assassination attempt 2 nights ago?" Victor's expression hardened. "That was unauthorized. Overeager subordinates who misunderstood my intent. I want your territory, Colonel. I don't want your mate's blood on my hands. There's a difference between war and murder." Marcus studied him, looking for deception. Found none. Victor was many things, but he wasn't a liar. The attack had been rogue elements exceeding orders. It didn't make them less dangerous, but it clarified the situation. "So where does that leave us?" Marcus asked. Victor paced slowly, thinking. "I propose a field test. You and I, shifted, running tactical coordination exercises. If you can maintain command coherence in wolf form, if you can prove integration rather than fracture, I'll withdraw my forces. Give you time to solidify your position. And if I can't, then you step down voluntarily. Yield command to your beta. Ironwood Pack gets absorbed into Blackridge through treaty rather than conquest. Your people are protected. Bloodshed is minimized. That's generous considering you hold the stronger position." Victor stopped pacing, met Marcus's eyes. "I served with your grandfather briefly before his decline. Dominic Ironwood was one of the finest tactical minds I've ever encountered. Watching the curse destroy him, watching him lose himself piece by piece, it was worse than any combat I've experienced. If you're going to fall the same way, I'd rather end this quickly. But if you've found a way to fight it, if you've achieved what Dominic couldn't..." Victor's voice softened almost imperceptibly. "Then you've earned the right to hold your territory. This is about honor. This is about not wanting to conquer a pack because their alpha inherited a 70-year-old curse he didn't ask for." Victor straightened. "So, do we test your integration, or do we schedule a war neither of us truly wants?" Marcus felt his wolf stir, not with aggression, but with assessment. The animal recognized Victor as a worthy opponent, respected his directness, and the human part of Marcus, the tactical commander, saw the wisdom in this approach. If Victor was offering a way to resolve this without mass casualties, refusing would be foolish. And more than that, Marcus knew he needed to prove his integration, not just to Victor, but to his own pack. Confidence in leadership required demonstration, not just declaration. "I accept your test," Marcus said. "What parameters?" Victor pulled a tactical map from his pack, spread it on one of the flat stones. "Standard patrol coordination scenario. We each command a squad, 5 wolves each. Objective is to secure this ridgeline while defending against simulated enemy force. Requires real-time tactical coordination, verbal commands given in wolf form through Alpha Link, adjustment to changing conditions. Should take about 2 hours. Carter and Petrov will observe and document. If you maintain coherent command throughout, if there's no evidence of dissociative episodes or contradictory orders, I'll accept that you're fit for command." Marcus studied the map, his mind already running scenarios. The exercise was sophisticated, designed to stress test exactly the capabilities the curse compromised. Dominic, in his fractured state, would have failed this within minutes. But Marcus had something Dominic never achieved. He had started to integrate. The barrier was still there, still fragile, but he had learned to bridge it. Wolf and man could coordinate now. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. "When?" Marcus asked. "Now," Victor said, "before either of us has time to second-guess this." Marcus looked to Carter, who nodded. They had prepared for multiple scenarios. This one was better than most. Carter pulled out a radio, spoke quietly to the support teams positioned in the surrounding forest. Ironwood warriors emerged from the trees, 5 of them, combat veterans who trusted their alpha's judgment even when it seemed insane. Victor's team assembled with equal efficiency. Professional soldiers, all of them, who understood this exercise was about preventing war, not starting one. The rules were established quickly, non-lethal engagement only. Success measured by tactical objectives secured, not opponents eliminated. Petrov and Carter would track commands given, coherence maintained, any signs of mental fracture. Both alphas stripped down to basics, preparing for the shift. Marcus felt the familiar pull, the call to transformation. But this time, he didn't fear it. He had learned to trust both sides of himself. The shift came easier now, bone and muscle reformed with practiced efficiency. Marcus fought to stay present, to keep his human consciousness active, even as his body became wolf. The barrier tried to slam down, tried to separate his 2 selves. He pushed back, using every technique Ava had taught him. "Stay aware. Both sides present. 1 commander, 2 forms." When the transformation completed, Marcus stood on 4 legs, senses exploding with information. But his mind, his human tactical awareness, remained active, watching, analyzing, coordinating with the wolf's instincts. Victor shifted beside him, a massive dark wolf with amber eyes. Through the alpha mental link that connected pack leaders, Marcus felt Victor's consciousness reaching out. Testing. "Colonel Ironwood, can you hear me?" Marcus focused, pushing his human thoughts through the link. "Affirmative. Ready to proceed." The clarity of the response made Victor's wolf pause. That wasn't animal communication. That was military protocol delivered through supernatural channels. Integration wasn't just theoretical anymore, it was functional. "Then let's begin," Victor sent. What followed would be discussed in pack tactical academies for years to come. 2 alphas, both in wolf form, running a complex military operation that required constant verbal coordination, real-time adjustment to changing conditions, and seamless integration of animal instinct with human strategy. Marcus commanded his squad through the mental link, his orders precise and tactical. Flank left, use the creek for cover, eyes on the ridgeline. His wolf senses tracked everything: enemy positions, terrain advantages, wind direction carrying scent information. But his human mind processed that data, turned it into actionable intelligence. Victor ran his own operation with equal sophistication, and Marcus found himself not just competing, but coordinating. The scenario required them to work together, two separate forces achieving a unified objective. It was a test of integration and cooperation both. Blackridge team Victor sent, advanced to checkpoint Alpha. Ironwood team provides overwatch. Confirmed, Marcus replied. 2 wolves on the high ground, 3 maintaining mobile reserve. The exercise evolved. Simulated enemy forces, played by neutral pack observers, threw complications at them. Ambushes, broken supply lines, casualties that required tactical reorganization. Each challenge demanded clear thinking, coherent command, and the ability to adjust strategy mid-operation. Marcus felt the strain. Maintaining human consciousness while in wolf form was like holding 2 conversations simultaneously, each in a different language. His mind wanted to slip into pure instinct, to let the wolf handle everything. The barrier kept trying to reassert itself. But he had Ava's voice in his memory, coaching him through the hard moments. You're not 2 commanders. You're 1 leader using 2 skill sets. Trust both sides. So he did. When his wolf senses caught an ambush before it sprung, he trusted that instinct and adjusted tactics. When his human strategic training suggested a better approach, he trusted that wisdom and implemented it. Wolf and man, working together, neither dominating, both contributing. The 2-hour exercise pushed every boundary. By the end, Marcus's integrated consciousness was exhausted in ways pure physical fatigue never achieved. But he held. No blackouts, no memory gaps, no contradictory orders. Just sustained, coherent command from an alpha who had learned to be whole. When the scenario concluded, both alphas shifted back to human form. Marcus knelt on the ground, breathing hard, but his mind was clear. He remembered every decision, every tactical choice, every moment of the operation. Carter approached with water and tactical reports. Sir, that was flawless. Coherent command throughout, no signs of dissociation. Victor stood nearby, pulled on his field jacket, and studied Marcus with new respect. I've never seen that before. Dominic couldn't maintain consciousness for 5 minutes in wolf form, let alone run complex operations. You're not just managing the curse, Colonel. You're using it. Integration isn't weakness, Marcus said, finding his voice. It's what Catherine Ironwood failed to understand. Splitting the wolf from the man doesn't create strength. Unifying them does. Victor nodded slowly. I came here expecting to watch you fracture. Instead, I witnessed something that changes tactical doctrine. An alpha who can think like a human and sense like a wolf simultaneously. He extended his hand. You've proven your fitness for command, Colonel Ironwood. Blackridge forces will withdraw from your borders. Marcus gripped his hand, the gesture carrying weight beyond simple diplomacy. This wasn't just ending a territorial dispute. This was one soldier acknowledging another's victory over impossible odds. The intelligence about other Ironwood descendants, Marcus said, the ones showing curse symptoms. I'll need that information. Victor's expression grew serious. There are 4 bloodline carriers in other packs, all exhibiting early-stage fracture. If you found a way to achieve integration, they deserve the same chance Dominic never got. We'll reach out to them, Marcus confirmed. Teach them what I've learned. No more wolves fighting themselves. That's a worthy mission, Victor said. An Ironwood pack has earned the peace to pursue it. The formal negotiations took another hour. Territory boundaries confirmed, patrol coordination established to prevent future misunderstandings, and intelligence sharing agreements for mutual security. By the time both parties prepared to leave, the moon had risen full and bright overhead. Carter walked with Marcus back toward Ironwood territory, far enough from the neutral ground to speak freely. Sir, I've served with you for a decade. I've never seen you command like that. It wasn't just competent, it was inspired. It was integration, Marcus said. Everything I am, unified instead of divided. That's what Catherine tried to destroy. That's what Victor thought was impossible. And that's what I need to complete. The mate bond, Carter said. You've achieved tactical integration. But the curse won't fully break until both sides of you claim Ava. I know. Marcus looked up at the moon, thinking about the woman who had refused to give up on him even when he rejected her. She deserves better than a mate who still carries fragments of a curse. Then finish what you started. Carter's voice was firm. Complete the integration, not just for tactics or pack security, but because she stood beside you through the hardest battle of your life. She's earned that claiming. Marcus knew he was right. The tactical victory was important, But the personal one, the acceptance of the mate bond with both his human heart and his wolf soul, that was what would truly break Catherine's curse. When he returned to Ironwood territory, he found Ava in the medical facility, treating minor injuries from training exercises. She looked up as he entered, and the relief in her eyes hit him harder than any tactical assessment. "You're whole," she said simply. "I can see it. Both of you together." Victor tested my integration. We ran a 2-hour tactical scenario. I held consciousness throughout. No fractures, no blackouts. Ava set down her medical instruments, came around the examination table. "That's incredible. You've achieved what your grandfather never could." "Not completely." Marcus took her hands, felt the mate bond hum between them, stronger now that both his consciousnesses acknowledged it. The tactical integration is functional, but the curse won't fully break until I accept the mate bond. Not just my wolf, he's known from the beginning. My human heart has to choose you too. Ava's eyes searched his face. "And has it? Chosen me?" "From the moment you refused to give up on me," Marcus said. "Maybe earlier. Maybe when you volunteered to put yourself in danger to help me integrate. Maybe when you looked at me, fractured and broken, and saw someone worth fighting for. I rejected you because my mind was cursed. Now I'm choosing you because my mind is finally my own." The words settled between them, carrying weight beyond romance. This was acknowledgement of partnership, of respect earned through battlefield cooperation, of trust built in the hardest circumstances. Ava reached up, touched his face gently. "Your wolf has been choosing me every night for months, protecting me, watching over me." I'm glad his human finally caught up. "He's stubborn," Marcus said. "Took me longer than it should have. But you got there, that's what matters." The claiming ceremony happened 3 days later, giving Marcus time to complete the remaining integration work with Ruth's guidance. The barrier between his two consciousnesses was thin now, more like a permeable membrane than a solid wall. He could shift and retain full awareness, could access his wolf's memories from previous months, could coordinate both sides of himself with increasing ease. But the final step required the mate bond, required him to accept, with both his human and wolf consciousness, that Ava was his partner in every sense that mattered. The pack assembled in the same clearing where the moon ritual had first revealed their bond. This time, there was no rejection, no denial, just two people standing before their community, ready to formalize what fate had chosen and they had both fought to accept. Ruth officiated, her voice carrying the weight of tradition and personal investment both. She had watched 3 generations struggle with this curse. Now she would witness its breaking. "The moon goddess brought Marcus Ironwood and Ava Ashford together," Ruth said. "The bond was rejected through no fault of either party, but through the legacy of a curse meant to divide. Tonight we witness not just a claiming, but a healing." Marcus took Ava's hands, met her eyes. The mate bond ritual required words, personal vows that bound 2 souls together. His were not flowery or elaborate. They were the truth a soldier spoke when words mattered most. "Ava Ashford, I rejected you because part of me was broken. You fought to heal that brokenness anyway. You put yourself in danger to help me integrate. You never gave up, even when giving up would have been easier. My wolf knew you were ours from the first moment. Now my human heart knows it too. I claim you as my mate, my partner, my equal. Both sides of me, unified, choosing you." Ava's response was equally direct, a surgeon's precision in emotional declaration. "Marcus Ironwood, you tried to protect me by pushing me away. Instead, I learned to stand beside you in the battle that mattered most. You're stronger whole than divided, and I will always fight for your integration. I accept your claim. I choose you, all of you, wolf and man together." The traditional bite mark came next. Marcus shifted partially, enough to mark her shoulder with the mating bite that would broadcast to every supernatural within 100 miles that she was claimed. The mark settled into her skin, silver and permanent, a declaration written in ancient magic. When he shifted back fully, both sides of his consciousness present and unified, Marcus felt something fundamental change. The barrier that had separated wolf from man, the wall Catherine Ironwood had built 70 years ago, finally shattered completely. Memories flooded through him. Every night his wolf had protected Ava, every moment of watching over her, every tactical assessment his animal side had made while his human consciousness was locked away. It all integrated, became part of one continuous awareness. He staggered slightly, overwhelmed by the sudden completeness. Ava caught him, steadied him. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "I remember everything," he said, wonder in his voice. "Every night, every moment my wolf knew what my mind refused to accept. He looked at her, his eyes shining with emotion he no longer had to suppress. "I'm whole. For the first time in 6 months, I'm actually whole." Ruth stepped forward, examined him with professional scrutiny. "The curse is broken, not just managed or suppressed. Broken. You've done what 3 generations couldn't. You've unified what Catherine tried to divide." The pack erupted in cheers, not just celebration of a mating, but recognition of a victory that secured their future. Their alpha was whole. The threat of fracture was ended. Stability had been earned through the hardest possible trial. Carter approached, gripped Marcus's shoulder. "Welcome back, sir. All of you." Marcus smiled, felt his wolf's contentment and his human gratitude as one unified emotion. "It's good to be back." The celebration lasted into the night, but Marcus and Ava eventually slipped away, seeking quiet after the intensity of public ceremony. They walked through the forest, following paths Marcus's wolf had run countless times, now remembered by his human mind. "I owe you an apology," Marcus said as they reached a clearing lit by moonlight. "When you first found me in the forest as the Silver Wolf, you tried to connect. I couldn't respond the way I wanted." "Your wolf responded perfectly," Ava said. "He was the part of you that knew truth when your human mind was blind to it." Still, Marcus stopped walking, turned to face her. "You deserved better than a mate so broken he couldn't even remember loving you. You weren't broken, you were cursed. There's a difference, and now you're healed. Not healed. Integrated. The curse is part of my history. What Catherine did shaped 3 generations of Ironwood alphas. I can't erase that. But I can choose what to do with it." "And what will you do?" Marcus looked up into the moon, thinking about the 4 other bloodline carriers Ruth had mentioned. Other wolves struggling with fracture, believing they were going insane, heading toward the same fate Dominic suffered. "We're going to help them," he said. "Every Ironwood descendant showing curse symptoms. We'll teach them integration. Show them it's possible to be whole." "That's a good mission," Ava said. "It's the mission Catherine should have chosen 70 years ago. Instead of trying to create perfect soldiers by destroying their humanity, she should have taught integration." They stood in comfortable silence, the mate bond a warm presence between them. Not overwhelming or consuming, just a steady assurance that they were partners in everything that came next. "You know," Ava said eventually, "your wolf had good taste. Even before you consciously knew me, he chose well." "He always was the smarter half," Marcus admitted with a slight smile. "Took my human brain months to catch up." "But you got there." She leaned into him. "That's what matters." The weeks that followed brought their own rhythm. Marcus coordinated with Ruth to reach out to the 4 Ironwood descendants Victor had identified. The responses came quickly, each one carrying the desperate hope of wolves who thought they were losing their minds. Marcus and his team would visit each pack in turn, teaching the integration protocols, proving that wholeness was possible. Carter stepped into a more prominent role as Beta, taking over daily operations so Marcus could focus on the larger mission of breaking the curse's hold on his bloodline. The pack thrived under unified leadership, and border relations with Blackridge stabilized into genuine cooperation. And through it all, Marcus discovered what it meant to be whole, to shift and retain awareness, to make decisions with both tactical precision and instinctive certainty, to love without reservation, because both halves of his soul recognized the same truth. One evening, a month after the claiming, Marcus stood in his office reviewing files on the first descendant they would visit. Ava entered with coffee, settling into the chair across from him. "Cassandra Ironwood," she read from the report. "Female alpha, Eastern Territories. Started having blackouts 3 months ago. Her pack council is considering removing her from command." "We leave tomorrow," Marcus confirmed. "Ruth has the medical protocols ready. Carter will hold command here while we're gone." "How long do you think it will take to help her integrate?" Marcus considered. "Depends on how severe her fracture is. She's 2nd generation, so the barrier should be less solid than mine was. Maybe 2 weeks if she's committed to the work. And the others after her? We'll help them all," Marcus said. "However long it takes, because Catherine's curse doesn't get to destroy another generation." Ava reached across the desk, took his hand. "You've turned your greatest wound into your greatest mission." "Someone had to," Marcus said. "Dominic couldn't. My father didn't live long enough. But I can. We can." The fire crackled in the hearth, casting warm light across the office where so many tactical decisions had been made. Outside, the pack moved through evening routines, secure in the knowledge that their alpha commanded with unified purpose. Marcus Ironwood had been born into a curse he didn't choose, fractured by legacy he couldn't escape. But he had done what 3 generations before him couldn't. He had unified what Catherine tried to divide. He had trusted where Dominic had rejected. He had accepted help where his father had fought alone. The war was over. Not just the territorial conflict with Blackridge, but the deeper war, the one fought inside his own mind. And now, standing whole at last, Marcus understood the truth Catherine had been too broken to see. Strength didn't come from separation. It came from unity, from accepting every part of yourself, integrating the pieces that seemed at war, and trusting that wholeness was the foundation of everything worth fighting for. The silver wolf would run these mountains for decades to come. But now, he would run with human awareness alongside animal instinct. 2 parts of one leader, working in perfect coordination. Divided no longer. Unified at last. Whole.